Hello, everyone. We're gonna do a take two on creativity in the mundane with, if we can get her on here. Here she is.
Well, did you do something different that time?
No.
Oh, I guess I've never noticed that it said a room. Well, anyway, what a perfect example. So technology alone can be just the most repetitive, irritating issue. But what you earlier said was we can choose to do it, anything that's mundane begrudgingly. We can outsource it, or we can accept it and whistle while we work.
Yeah.
I never even thought about life being mundane. And I mean, I was up to my ears in dirty diapers with 4 kids at 38. And I joined a writing class. And one of the prompts was to get you to join the class, like the advertisement or the promo, was to
Mhm.
find the beauty in the mundane. And I
Mhm.
just thought, yeah, that's a great class. That's what memoir, that's how they started out the memoir thing. It was the memoir class that I took, and I took it like 4 times.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so when you write about, just the everyday kind of humdrum, ordinary stuff that you do, and you let yourself go with it, you can find beauty in it. And in our case, you and I are talking about the creativity in it, which I think is beauty is great. The sublime is great. But to find the
Mhm.
creativity in it, I mean, I don't think a half an hour is going to be enough. So
No, no, it certainly won't, but we'll
yeah,
do our best as always.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I was thinking about the reason this topic came up is it was several weeks ago. I was hanging up my clothing and I was like really enjoying it. I had some Hildegard playing in the background, so I was kind of singing along, like practicing my piece, trying to learn
Mhm.
it, because Gregorian chant isn't melodic, so it takes a lot of
Yeah,
learning. And so I'm putting away clothes, hanging them up, listening to this song on repeat, and then I ran out of clothes. And I had this moment where I was like, oh man, I don't have any clothes left. Like I have to do a new thing now. And I was like,
right.
wow, like that's a rare experience,
Yeah.
but it's also an experience I've had before, and it, at certain times of my life. So, when you said, for instance, like we choose our perspective, I think that's really true. But I also think for me and my experience, it's had so much to do with the state of my nervous system
Yeah.
and the state of the rest of my life, right? So, like, if my whole life is a shit show, it's not fun to hang my clothes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if my life feels cohesive and I feel like my roots are going down into the earth and, I'm generally doing well mental health wise and well taken care of,
Hmm.
then every little act like that feels like self-care. Like
Yeah.
it almost feels comparable to like taking a hot bath or, having one of those moments of indulgence, quote unquote
Yes.
indulgence
Yes.
in an activity that normally I wouldn't put on my list of things that the top five things,
Yeah.
hanging my clothes, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. But when
So
you do put music on and you're uninterrupted and you're not rushed, you literally can, with each hang, you can make it all go the same way. And I do mine by color. My friend Donna taught
mhm,
me that. So my whole closet is by cover. And I'm not at all an organized person
mhm,
externally. Internally, I guess I'm just not organized, but to exercise gratitude. And I remember putting away my baby's clothes. Like this was not, it just feels like yesterday, and it was not yesterday. It was a long time ago. But when the baby's clothes are brand new and fresh, and they're these little
mhm,
tiny things, and you're folding them, and you're
mhm.
trying to get everything all perfect. It was literally fun. It was like, I can't
Yeah.
believe I have a baby. I can't believe I have baby clothes. Well, then, fast forward, and it was not like that after a while. They were stained and they were icky, and you know, uh, and I had been doing it then for however many years, and so it kind of took the surprise, element and the fresh, innovative, novel idea out of it. However, now I'm back to folding baby clothes again, and
Mhm.
it's such a beautiful reminder of that time in my life. And their clothes are way nicer than mine. I'm trying to remember, where did we get our clothes? Did I get them all from hand-me-downs? Like they've got really cute, Carter's fresh, brand new clothes. So anyway,
Totally.
I've been thinking so much without knowing we were going to talk about the mundane, just about how little things are sparking for me, whether you want to call it joy or reflection. But any creative process has joy, and any creative project, you have a reflection stage. So I am, correlating the creative process with a lot of this mundane stuff that I'm back to. which
Mhm.
literally, my new word, includes dirty diapers and,
Totally.
feces under my fingernails. It's a repetition for me, and yet I can do it with a little bit of a more reflective, kind of thankful attitude. And
Mhm.
it will, I know for a fact at almost 60, it's going to inform my writing. I know it. The little details.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I think too, when for whatever reason, whether it's because our life is going in a certain way and we're feeling secure and safe and taken care of, and those little moments of what I would otherwise feel like chores maybe,
Mm-hmm.
those moments actually do feel like care. That's a really great place to be. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where everyone deserves to be, it's like even mopping my floor and like organizing my house can feel so nourishing to me, even like tying up the wires and those little twisty things and like
Mm-hmm.
organizing the wires and those things that make you crazy most of
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
um
Well, and some people, we always talk about this. Crystal and I are both wired the same. We both have a very philosophically, we're burdened philosophically. It's sometimes a burden. So we have to work to undo that burden. And, but I'm not wired like many people. I can have the house be a mess. I can have the wires be a mess. Nothing like that bothers me so much. But to know your process in creativity is what matters. So when you are trying to live just a creative life, you're just trying to engage with the force of creativity, with that phenomenon every single day. To know your process, like I can't touch down with this magical force of creativity and be part of something greater than myself when the wires are all fucked up, right? And
totally.
if there's grit on the floor and I'm barefooted, it's gonna dry. You have to know what your process is. And for
Yeah.
me, I'm gonna be tired if I have to sweep and then fix the wires and then sit down to paint or write or whatever my
Mhm.
process is. But even like if your creative process is just cooking, right? Whatever it is,
Mhm.
but just living creatively, knowing that you want to be connected to that power, to that energy. Not knowing your process is what holds you back. Then just clean the floor, then just fix the wires, then get there. um, Not to
Yeah.
go on and on, but in my book, I think I've told you this before. When I have to sit down and write, like if it's just a paper, or I used to write for the newspaper and it was due, and there was a
Mhm.
lot of wallowing involved. And I actually wrote an article for another magazine about the wallowing involved before I have to write.
Mhm.
So it's daunting. I know I have to get it out. And so I have to lay on the floor and I kind of grunt, and I'm really upset that I can't write because I'm very
Mhm.
emotional about it.
Yeah.
But I've come to realize that that's part of my process. And
Right.
even when I think, okay, forget it, I'm just going to quit writing, I still do that. I still go through the stupid stages, even though I know they're the stages that I go through, I still go through
Mhm.
them.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but just the wallowing alone, and Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way talks a lot about margins, and she doesn't call them margins. I think she calls them space. She calls it space.
Mhm.
And then when I was doing my studies, we talked about, like you and I have talked about, the sunshine on the plant,
Mhm.
right? So the space for the creative person would be the root, where the roots are going to go down. You need lots of space for the roots, and you need space and sunlight for it to go up there. So for you to have a
Right.
nurturing environment, nurturing for you, just to live creatively, you have to know what you need. But some of us don't know that.
Totally.
We have to figure it out, and that therein lies,
Yeah.
the struggle, the tension.
Totally. Yeah, and it took me a really long time to figure it out. And I think in many ways I'm still figuring it out and still discovering it through trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to share an experience actually, because when you mentioned the thing about the baby clothes, it reminded me of an experience I had as a new mother, and a young mother. I was 22 when my son was born. And I was home most of the time by myself with him. My friends were not like doing the baby thing at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So, I didn't have a lot going on as far as like support or social network or anything. And I would like diligently get myself out the door to go take him on hikes, like carrying him
Mm-hmm.
in the carrier. And I would like do mommy meetup groups with moms I had never met before, because I didn't have mom friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I had very bad postpartum depression and anxiety. And I remember very clearly one day, like dressing my son to get him out the door, and just the frustration of like his little arms going all over the place and wiggling and trying to get him in, like trying to get the arm in there and these tiny little sleeves. and
Oh
and I
my
had
gosh.
this moment of like, why is this so hard? And why am I so angry about it? Like I wasn't angry at him, but just angry at like, why is this so hard? And I think that's it's kind of like the opposite of the experience you were having in some ways. And the important thing to me is just to point out that we can find the beauty in the mundane, and we can have an orientation in our attitude. But when we're trying to cognitively or consciously, with awareness, choose to have that, and we're hitting a boundary, like we're coming up against those negative emotions, that frustration or whatever, there can be something else going on. So I think it's really important to kind of make a distinction between like, oh, we can just choose to feel this way or choose to orient to life this way. I think it's really it comes out of first having our wells filled, that kind of stereotype or that cliche of having the well full. And that's exactly what I feel like I'm experiencing now. And that moment where I noticed that, oh, wow, I'm really enjoying hanging these clothes, which, normally would be something that would be kind of frustrating. Oh, I have to do that. Oh man, like, or I didn't get it done by the end of the weekend, and now it's the work week again or whatever. That to me is a sign that my
Yes.
well is filled,
Yes.
right? And at that
Yes.
time, when my son was an infant, my well was not filled because I was really, isolated. And it's sort of like a chicken egg. Like I
Yeah.
was depressed, I was
Yeah.
isolated. Was I isolated because I was depressed? Was it,
Yeah.
that kind of a thing. But now I'm really supported.
Yeah.
And I'm supported in like what you're saying, and having margins in my life where I'm not running from one thing to the other, just trying to keep it all together. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Um, so I just wanted to say that for the people out there who have similar experiences.
Yeah. Well, you don't even have to be a mom and be trying to dress a kid. Um,
Totally.
but I think it was you that said it's just information, right? It's just
Yeah.
information. So when we come up against, you called the boundary, but I'll call it an obstacle, more of an
Mhm.
obstacle, and and life becomes an irritant just living. And I'm telling you, Jordan, my son, I always bring up Jordan because he was the first, but Jordan went to Fiona's mom's house. Her name is Sibel.
Mhm.
And he went there to give her an accordion lesson. And, he came home. And of course, I worked like almost full time, right? And
Mhm.
Sibel had this garden in her house. And they had all these musical instruments. And Sibel sat down with them during the lesson. I'm saying it facetiously. I was extremely jealous that Sibel
Mhm.
and Jordan came home and it was just like they live a very soulful life. She's not rushing around from here to there. The house is not cluttered, but it's full. Like, and i
Mhm.
just i just internalized it, like I'm always running from here to there, I'm always trying to
Mhm.
do too much. And so he's grown up now, he's probably 20, and he's seeing the difference between one Santa Clarita mom and another Santa Clarita mom.
Mhm.
And so to me, when you come up against those obstacles, the information is, dude, you're doing too much, you're just doing too
Totally.
much, right? and
Totally.
um and when the baby, this baby that I'm caring for is 20 months old. When he doesn't want to do something, I want to force him to do it because I want to
Mhm.
be on my timeline. And yet he's from the
Totally.
other side and he
Yeah.
has his own timeline. And so there has to be this balance where sometimes if he doesn't want to get in his car seat or he doesn't want to go in the house, we all just let him do whatever it is he thinks he wants to do. But sometimes
Right.
we can't do that. But
Sure.
when you're too hard pressed to even consider it, that's information to say, okay, this could be fun. This process could be fun of dressing a little doll. It doesn't have to
Yeah,
be an irritant. So
exactly.
my therapist used to call them red flags. And I mean,
Mhm.
I think I was like 35 when I first heard the word red flags. And I think when you're in your 30s is when you look back and you go, okay, this is not the life I want, or I am living the life I want. And you just
Mhm.
have more of a meta self to pull yourself out of your scenario because you're kind of
Right.
a ping pong ball in your 20s, not a pinball, right? You're
Yeah.
bouncing around in your 20s, and then in your 30s you start to settle in to who you are. But as far
Mhm.
as creativity goes, every day can be like in my video, I was curling my hair and it didn't turn out well. If you watch my video, my hair looks horrible. But everything you do is a creative endeavor. Everything can help you touch to that creativity, even curling your
Exactly.
hair for a video, even if your hair doesn't turn out. So if we have that mindset that me wallowing on the floor or even getting frustrated with the toddler who refuses to be changed, all of those things can contribute to a more creative life when you're connected.
Totally. Yeah,
And
and that's the huge difference. That's a huge difference. And to me, I'm not sure if I conflate the two or if it's accurate, but to me it's like if my well is sufficiently full, I'm able to digest those experiences as what I'd call creative fodder. Whereas if I'm below what I call like below the line, if there's like
mm-hmm.
a graph and like here's me healthy and happy and here's me below the line, like down here, having a total breakdown or whatever.
Yeah.
If I'm below the line, those experiences just deplete me more and they don't seem to take hold in my psyche as food until much later once I'm back above
Right.
the water.
And what's sad, and which I did, what I never knew, that maybe you won't experience this, but this whole homeostasis thing, the homeostasis is right here, and we have this goal of raising the bar and living like this, and so sometimes we do get there, but maybe
Mhm.
we don't stay up there, and then here's the line, we go way down, but eventually the down won't be so far, when we fall down, the
Right.
gauge won't be as far, but you will always.
Because of self-knowledge, really, though. It's
Well,
because
yeah,
of
sure.
self-knowledge, not because we don't have the capacity to fall that far, right?
Yeah,
But
right.
because we know what we need and we
Yeah,
learn that on the path of life, right?
right. And you know what? Some of us don't learn it early on, and some people do. And that's what
Yeah.
I've noticed about the four kids is that, I mean, if I have four kids and one of them learned how to eat healthy at a young age, and one of them learned how to work hard at a young age, and one of them learned how to have a good relationship, but nobody did all of those things at once.
Yeah,
And nobody,
for sure.
and it's not like self-care came last for somebody and a relationship came first for somebody. I've noticed that everybody's development is its own
Mhm.
spiral. It's its own
Of
thing.
course.
Yeah.
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 And that
And
goes back to what you were saying about the baby, right? About like hard timelines that we have for the baby to, oh, the baby should do this and the baby needs to get
yeah,
dressed and the baby
yeah.
needs to be in the car seat or whatever. The
Hmm.
biggest learning I had was on that topic from teaching preschool. Because in the preschool classroom, you're there 100% for them. You're not
Yeah.
there for yourself,
Yeah.
aside from, the career and the paycheck and whatever. But
Yeah.
once you're in that room, it doesn't have anything to do with you. So you don't have an agenda for the children other than, okay, we're going to paint now, or we're going to go play in the sand now, or whatever. Uh-oh, are you still there? I'm just going to keep talking and assume that you're still there. Um, okay, there you
It went black.
Okay. Well,
Okay. So
you're here now, right?
a preschooler would just, you're there for the preschooler, right?
Yeah, so you're
You're
there for
allowing it to
them.
unfold. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So what I noticed my job was actually for them wasn't teaching them in the sense of, oh, I have an idea. Now you're going to learn it and
Yeah.
understand it and assimilate it. My job really was creating brackets of space
Hmm.
that created a loose enough structure, like just enough structure, so
Hmm.
that they could express themselves in different scenarios.
Hmm.
So it'd be like, okay, 30 minutes of sensory bins, and all the sensory bins would be around, and they'd be allowed to basically make a mess and get flour all over the floor and play with marbles, and as long as they didn't put them in their mouths. And
Yeah.
I had this
Yeah.
one kiddo who always put it in his mouth every time, and then you see their little personalities emerge, like,
Yeah.
wow, it's
Yeah.
amazing. But yeah, so then it'd be 30 minutes of that, and then it'd be, okay, now we're gonna go play in the sand for 45 minutes and play
Hmm.
outside and swing on the swings, and just creating these little containers for them.
Hmm.
It was much more like creating safe, stimulating containers than it was teaching in the formal
Right.
sense.
Well, and if you can
Um,
apply that to life for people who
mhm,
aren't ever going to have kids, because I've got a couple of those too, when you apply those concepts to life, you're
mhm.
living organically and you're allowing life to unfold, which is really creative. And there will always be obstacles. There's always going
Yeah,
to be obstacles. And I personally am always going to cry about those obstacles. I'm always going to cry and throw a fit. I just know my process, and I'm always going to weep about the things that are upsetting me. I'm going to express myself, and it's not a liability, and it doesn't mean,
Mhm.
but it's taken me years to accept that and not go, oh, I'm really doing poorly. I'm not suffering from like serious depression or anything. I'm just a weeper, and I just
Mhm.
feel things, and when I'm happy, I'll express it. So that's just me. But as an adult who is trying to live a life that is based on the whole mission of creativity, which is to deeply connect with oneself and then to connect with others, to allow things to unfold like a preschool teacher teaches her course, I think is the best mission you could have.
It's become my mission in life because it taught me so much. And, I talk about children because I'm a mom and I was formerly a preschool teacher, but it's the same. If
Yeah.
you've ever been in a relationship, if you've, even in yourself, like if you have ever been hangry, throwing a tantrum just
Yes.
because you're hungry, like
Yes.
we are toddlers
Yes.
and we're just more complex and, maybe like egotistical toddlers, but
Mm-hmm.
basically we have the same basic needs as them. And
Mm-hmm.
so in that space, when I let go of my agenda and
Mm-hmm.
allowed life to just play out in front of me, those
Mm-hmm.
children were able to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And they taught me so much about being present
Mm-hmm.
and just allowing life to unfold
Mm-hmm.
and not imposing my own will on.
That is beautiful. That is
They
beautiful.
were the creative process laid out in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I mean, I don't think I've learned as much from any single experience
Yeah.
um, beside being a mother, which is
No,
like
I agree with you.
always an ongoing experience.
Well, and I used to say this, if I could parent like I teach my preschool classes, you know, I should certainly be a much better mother, but I
If
couldn't.
I could parent myself the way that I teach
Yeah,
my
yeah,
preschool
that's
classes, I
right.
would be a much
Right.
healthier, happier person.
Well, and the other thing that I was thinking about as I was thinking about the mundane, because for me, I've always only thought about it as writing, like how can a writer find the beauty in the mundane? And now I'm
Mhm.
connecting it to my worldview of creativity. And what came to my mind, because I knew we would talk about preschoolers, I just knew it,
Mhm.
is I saw a documentary in Explained on about babies, and
Mhm.
the new brain science. I don't think it was before 2015. The new brain science is proving that whoever is caretaking the baby, which is fucking mundane, changing diapers and
Yeah.
taking that feces out from under your fingernails and getting food thrown at you and then crawling on the floor on your hands and knees at 57 and picking up pasta off the floor and wiping up the ants that came. It's
Mhm.
mundane. I am
Yeah.
back to the mundane. But
Yeah.
what the documentary was saying about all this mundane baby caring is when you're nurturing an infant, your amygdala, which is your emotional response system and your emotional world, the whole system near your amygdala, it totally expands and grows. And it not only grows in the mommy who birthed the baby and who's now living on more oxytocin than she's ever lived on, but it's
Mhm.
also living in the father. The oxytocin goes up, and it happens in grandmas and grandpas. They
Wow.
measured one of my favorite, what is she called? What's it called? When anthropologist, her name is Sarah Hardy, HRDY. Her book changed my life. She taught me that mothers' heartbeats synchronize with babies. And
Mhm.
now I've come to find out my heartbeat will synchronize with your heartbeat when we're listening to the same story. I just
Totally.
thought it was music. In my seminars, I just say it's music, but now I know it's story too. But
Yeah.
your brain expands and you share the oxytocin dose. And grandparents have, Sarah and her husband, as grandparents, they spit into a vial and they measured the oxytocin before and after they met their grandchild. And it went up like
Wow.
63%, even a week later. So
Wow.
what's happening with the mundane when we allow it to unfold and change us and we don't go into our downward spiral of bitching and complaining and moaning and groaning,
Mhm.
is it changes the landscape of our brains. It's not just emotional and spiritual. We're not just
Mhm.
harmonizing with the universe. We're
Right.
literally changing the landscape of our brains, the amount of chemicals that are being produced, the dendrites that are growing, and the size and expansion of our amygdala. That's creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Powerful.
beautiful. And the thing that makes it, I think, like brings it home for me is that it's the infusion of care into the mundane. Like the mundane exists as a structure for care. And when care and mundane are married, there is no more mundane because there's what you're
Beautifully
talking
said.
about.
That's right. That's right. And it was John Keats who sat, on his ass. I've been to his house for hours on end and wrote the poem about the Grecian urn. Like how
Hmm.
a Grecian urn, really, a pot. You're going to sit there and harmonize with a pot through a poetry. But that's what those philosophers in the Romantic era are talking about. That there is beauty, and when you connect with it, that's the force of creativity connecting you. It's so
Hmm.
powerful. And believe me, I just get overwhelmed all the time. And I wish that I could say I live in this. But just when I study it and when I take a few minutes to myself and I dive back into it, man, I'm pumped to see, okay, now maybe I won't be so grouchy tomorrow. Maybe I'll be able to handle what's thrown at me if I have this kind of uh, in my backpack, right?
Yeah, it's our orientation. It's programming the mind
Hmm.
and giving us that subtle food that we can actually evoke this in our own lives.
Amen.
Awesome. Well, that feels like a really good place to
We
put the
shall.
period
And we,
on for tonight.
okay. And if there's more on it, okay. And I don't know, I guess we talked about the babies documentary on Netflix and
Mm-hmm.
Sarah Hardy,
Sarah Hardy
Hardy,
and
which,
Keats, of course.
and
What was
Keith.
the book? Do you remember name of the book by Hardy?
Yes, our babies, ourselves.
Okay, I read that one a
Beautiful.
long time ago.
She's she's brilliant. And she actually, oh my gosh, she talks about the village nonstop in
Hmm.
that, because she'd
Yeah.
studied so many people groups, right? She talks
Hmm.
about the village, and you and I have been talking about the village in the past few weeks. And I've
Totally.
been behind closed doors. I've been sending you lots of memes because I never post anything. I'm not a poster, but I send it to you. I guess
Yeah.
I really don't know how to repost a meme, truth be told.
I'll teach you.
Okay. All right. Have a great night. Mwah.
You too. Love you.
Love you,
Mwah.
Crystal. Bye.